Where do I do that?
I can record it from my end.
Yeah, I'm just looking for the thing. Well, here we go. Here we go. No. Where do I do that? Oh, here we go. Here.
I can record it from my end.
That's okay. It's all started. Hello, everyone. Julia Simas here for the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. We're beaming out live as well to the our YouTube channel, which we need to get happening again. And I'm joined here with the wonderful Sol Jonassen in Norway, Agent 32. Hi, Sol.
Hello, good day.
Good to have you here on your Sunday morning, my Sunday, 9 p.m. See, devoted agents at work.
Well, it's 11 a.m. and I just heard the church bells toll.
Oh,
It's like ding
beautiful.
dong, ding dong, ding dong. It's Sunday.
It's Sunday. Yes, lovely. I mean,
Yes.
that's the beautiful thing about Europe. You have the church bells ringing, in the cities, well, all throughout the week, really, don't you? But Sundays mostly, of course. But in Australia, we don't really, we're not so dense as cities with churches ringing bells
Oh,
every
really?
day. No,
Hmm.
no, no. It's a very
Oh,
European thing. So we're here today to talk about, not introduce Pluto, but a big topic, which is Pluto in astrology. We probably don't need to say too much about what Pluto represents, but we will get into it a bit because I've invited Sol to have this chat because she will be doing a workshop for us in 2 weeks, a 3-hour workshop on Pluto in Aquarius for all Pluto generations, or for 6 or 5 of the main generations. Some of them are not around anymore. Let's put it that way. And because it's such a big topic and a big theme, we thought we'd do a bit of an introduction, let's say. So now Pluto, Sol, you are you are an evolutionary astrologer, and of course, evolutionary astrologers are very, I don't want to say fixated on Pluto, but would you say Pluto is the key sort of underlying evolutionary motivator in, let's say if you did a reading, EA style consultation or what have you, is Pluto where you go first?
yes and no, like it's like absolutely, it's like an overview. You get an overview that is like, I mean, you probably can appreciate that when you've done enough readings, you just scan the chart completely. It's
Yeah.
like you take like an Xerox imprint of your chart to your retina. And of course, Pluto is extremely important in evolutionary astrology as the soul's kind of like enzyme, or like the thing that the core beat. I mean, Jeffrey Wolf Green describes it as the bass drum that goes in the back. It's there. You might not be so aware of it, but you feel this rhythm, this very deep, deep rhythm in your life. It's this evolutionary power that drives everything forward, that drives this one thing that humanity seem to be, or humans seem to be a little bit uncomfortable with, and it's growth. It's this evolution, actually. And I think it's hard for us humans while we live our lives and we are in it and we are all this like in this microcosmos of ours, we tend to tune out a little bit occasionally from the fact that we are history and we are under the law of evolution at any given time in our lives. And we sometimes also miss this real deep beat in our lives. So Pluto's main like driving force is to connect us with that real deep subterranean rhythm of our own soul's evolution through the many lifetimes. So it's the planet of death and rebirth, known for most people. It's known as this death, rebirth,
Yeah.
phoenix rising kind of planet, but it describes a deep healing process that sort of helps us release the habits of the past, and these habits can be extremely deeply ingrained in us, both culturally and personally. And
Mm-hmm.
everything that's kind of lived out its purpose, Pluto confronts because it's blocking the expression of the soul, which is, well, you might say the life itself. It is life itself. So when we are um, separated from that beat, that deep beat in our own lives, we can feel stagnant or even like living dead.
Mm.
And once we go into the Pluto process, we start to go into a deeper becoming process of becoming that which we always were, but we are always evolving.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We keep
everything is
everything
evolution.
keep yeah, everything is evolution. Yeah, that's right. I
Yeah.
mean, doing astrology for so long, you do realize that it's all part, the whole astrology chart is all part of the whole evolutionary process. But Pluto moves at that rhythm, as you said, that's really kind of, slow and deliberate. If it's, on your in midheaven or it's on your sun, you're going to feel it for years, not just, as a sort of a transit for a few months or even an eclipse cycle, really. So you really, I mean, thank goodness for astrology and understanding these things because they really give us an anchor,
Yeah.
don't they? I mean, and then people, let's say, going through a very Pluto experience in their lives, without that explanation, that would be really hard, wouldn't it? To sort of deal with it. Life's processes of life, death and rebirth, going through things, in life, but astrology just helps us so much to, let's say, pinpoint more of what it is about for that particular time because it's doing it all the time ever since we were born, isn't it? It's somewhere. It doesn't
It's
have to be on the
somewhere.
sun or, yeah, it's somewhere all the time. Yeah.
Well, I think people feel that you can compare it with going to the dentist and having a root canal
Root
done.
canal, right.
Yeah, because you have to come back two or three, maybe five times. That's how
And it
many
still
transits
hurts.
yeah, but it's not over until the whole root is
It's
fixed,
healed.
so you have to really, if you've had one of those, they stick these things into your root and just so it's a planet of purification. It's the principle of purification, of elimination. So it's also associated with loss. I mean, Jeffrey Wolf Green has this theory that if you resist change, there will be a more
Brutal.
stressful approach. Yeah, it will stressful experience. But if you have like a kind of a toolbox ready to work with life, and with everything that is, and you have a spiritual connection somewhere that helps you return to some sort of source within yourself. Even the most intense Pluto transit can feel like, oh, this is it. Now I'm here. I'm finally doing that now. This is it. Now
Yeah.
life is kind of pinpointing some of my deepest, most challenging spots, and I can work on my addictions and my codependencies, and I can work with realigning with my true power and returning to my source again, and um, coming back to I would almost say it's almost rejuvenating in a way, but
Mm.
I'm not underestimating the intensity of people's lives and what they go through, because sometimes it's hard to kind of rationalize it, and
Mm.
oh, it's just Pluto. We can't astro-splain some of this pain that people are going through, but absolutely, I
Yeah.
agree with you. If
Yeah.
I hadn't had astrology, I think it would be like comparable to sailing without some sort of map or any kind of navigation. You would eventually drift ashore somewhere, but it might not be exactly where you wanted to
Mm,
be.
mm, mm.
And so it kind of makes the art of living with any planet, Saturn can be hard. Neptune, woo-ha, the transits
Yeah.
of Neptune is not for
Yeah.
amateurs either. And
Yeah.
Uranus. holy moly, when you get to the outer planets, you sort of get into waters that are beyond ego's control. So this is very hard for us because
Mm,
we have egos and we need to feel like we have a certain amount of control in our lives. And that's just not a thing for the outer planets and Pluto in particular. It's like if you hold on and you resist, life has a very strange way of coming up with um, evolution anyway. Like
yeah,
even
right.
if you don't want. So it's kind of when we study astrology, we study these natural laws of our solar system. We're just so as astrologers and students of astrology, we want to be aligned with those natural laws in our own solar
Mm,
system, which is our own natal charts. We want to kind of like find that flow with our own evolutionary rhythm. We
yeah.
don't, yeah. So, well, that's as far as I've gotten into understanding the meaning of everything, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, yeah, that's right. I mean, it
Like,
does, being sort of the furthest out. Well, it's not the furthest out anymore, is it really? We've got Eris
no.
and, there's so many more now. So how does an EA astrologer think about those that have come after now of Pluto?
I think,
There,
like,
it
I can
Pluto
only
still
think for myself.
retains, yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
power as the, the evolutionary sort of driver. Um, but oh no, it's just kind of interesting sort of question because things are always
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
evolving
Absolutely,
out there as
absolutely.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, they call it the Transplutonians. That's the deeper planets, like I don't know how do you say that, Quaoar and Aries
Maki
and
Maki.
Sedna.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
So yeah, like personally, I've always walked through astrology guided by my own intuitive radar. You might say, oh,
Hmm.
like Chiron, for instance. I have a wild obsession with Chiron because his mythology is so incredibly important for humanity. So that's why I think, it's a very vital archetype to work with. Pluto as well. It's a massive, massive mythology that really pertains to our everyday lives. And for now, I can see that we can define the organism solar system as the heliosphere, everything that's within that heliosphere, within that little
Hmm.
bubble of, I call it our spaceship because we travel through space inside this heliosphere and we are inhabitants of the solar system defined by our sun. And therefore, the outer rims of the heliosphere also belongs to this family,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
personally, I must say, for now, I keep my miso soup without too many ingredients because it's like it.
Spoils the broth.
Yes, the older I get, the simpler it becomes. It's like, oh yeah, simplify, simplify. Don't make it complicated. So I don't
Mm,
know, maybe that's just the way that I work, but I've done a little bit of studies on Sedna and Aries, of course, which is going to be, like we've recently had a Pluto
yeah,
square Aries
yeah, yeah.
for many, many years, and we saw what that brought up in the collective. It was this massive rage. So, of course, I've been very curious about her because if you think and consider Pluto as something very historical, this is a dimension beyond day-to-day
Mm,
thinking.
yeah.
Again, we are reminded that we are history and we might have been here before. We don't know. I mean, the
We
astrology
don't know, but
chart.
we get a sense of it, don't we? Although
Yeah.
being what do you call it? Psychic archaeology, where people have remembered being somewhere and then said,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
in a cave and there's a painting there of this, and there it
yeah.
is.
Yeah.
They go and find it. So the
Mm.
explanation. So there's in a sense there's evidence of past life sort of integrations you know into us.
Yeah, well, the birth chart itself is evidence that there was something before.
Yeah.
Why would it,
Yeah.
I mean, why would it else make any difference? Why would it make any difference? What am I looking at?
It doesn't just start
So
on, our birth
yeah,
chart. That's right.
it shows the cycles, and
Yeah.
according to an autobiography of a yogi, which is like part of,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, the philosophical foundation or the philosophical inspiration for a lot of the thinking in evolutionary astrology. It's stated there that a child is born in this autobiography. A child is born at the exact mathematical harmony or something. I'm not a little uncertain
Mm.
what the exact words are, with their karma, with their individual karma. So,
And yeah, we're shown what that map is, that what we go through in this lifetime to open up to or dig into, is our birth chart. Yeah. It's
mm,
amazing, isn't it?
but it's very hard to take that kind of responsibility, like it's very hard. But I think with Pluto transits in particular, which is opening, like my little theory is that whenever you come to Uranus, time collapses. There is a different sense of time out there. I mean, a year on Pluto is 248 Earth years.
Mm,
A year on Uranus is what, 84, 82, 84, I think. And
84. Mm.
yeah, 84, yeah. So, we go these cycles, these long cycles, and it kind of collapses time. It's like we enter into what we call the fifth dimension, which is an entanglement with um, um, timelessness in a way. Like here, everything happens at once.
Yeah.
So when you have a Pluto transit, you might feel like it. It's like, gosh, like deja vu or
Yeah.
echoes, or
Yeah.
this is very familiar and you're very familiar. And I'm like dealing with these very, very familiar themes in my life.
Mm.
Um, and I appreciate that like more and more, and I think especially now because Pluto is entering into Aquarius, the sign of, I would call it science, but metaphysics in particular.
Uh-huh.
And we're going to see some extreme changes coming the next, 20 years. I think most astrologers agree with that. Copernicus gave out his massive revolutionary thesis about the sun being heliocentric, like we are
Yes. Yeah.
heliocentrics.
Yeah. Yeah.
It changed everything. You've had all these reforms and revolutions happening during Pluto in Aquarius, and there's no reason why that shouldn't happen this time too. So I think we will understand these things, the nature of the soul much more, the nature of time, like to understand actually, like the to take seriously what they've been saying for years, that time is relative, time, like everything is relative in a way. And time is, what is it?
Yeah.
It's a
Well,
good
it's a
question.
Saturnian thing, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It's a
right. And
Saturnian
so,
thing.
I mean, that's like the big difference between like the harshness of Saturn, let's say transits or experiences, and Pluto. Now, it's often forgotten, I think, in, kind of more modern times of astrology, that, Saturn was the original ruler and still is of death and, the sort of the limits of life. But we do have, and then Pluto, in a sense, has taken over that. I've heard that said so many times.
Mm.
Not that I agree with it, but I can see why people, it's like they've forgotten that Saturn was such a keeper of all of that. That Pluto, in a sense, is not siphoned, but you know what I mean. But so Saturn is the timekeeper. And Pluto is the evolutionary sort of, keeper. So Saturn makes more sense on this kind of more closer front, as in time here right now, whereas Pluto is what you're talking about. That's how I understand.
There is a deep initiation process going on, and you can call Saturn, there's this concept of dwell around the threshold that comes from esoterics. So he's kind of like, here's the gatekeeper. He's like, you're not ready
You're
yet.
not
That's
ready for
that's
that,
Saturn.
right?
You're not ready
Yeah.
yet. Sorry, this is way too whoop for you. You're gonna freak out, you know? You're not ready.
yeah,
You're not ready for these. It's like we've seen all these initiation movies with like the hero or heroine coming in and doing like, I have these wild powers. I want to learn to use them, but I can't harness them yet. This is Pluto, the teacher. He's comes in, my young Padawan, I don't think you're ready yet. You haven't been able to control your emotions. You are not aware of who you are on a
yeah,
very
yeah,
subconscious level. Giving you massive amount of power now will turn you into a Darth Vader or something, you know. So it's like it's Star Wars over again. But I think the further out in our solar system we get, the deeper into the psyche, the
yeah.
collectives,
The yeah,
it's an expansion of consciousness. So little by little, we discovered one more and more planets. Uranus was discovered in 1781, exactly when Pluto was in Aquarius. So this is very like, which it's like, yeah,
yeah,
it's very interesting
yeah,
that
yeah,
happened. And you know, we are constantly expanding. Look at what's happening in our societies
yeah. Mm.
today. We have this quantum computing and AI, and it's like, oh, and there's a talk about UFOs coming in, and you have all this um, quantum mechanics that's been going on for a little bit over a century that's taking completely off these days. It's just a massive expansion of consciousness, and that's not always easy, of course,
Yeah.
but
Well, I
it's
mean,
very
when
exciting.
Uranus was discovered, the size of the universe doubled overnight, in a sense,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And as you say, Pluto was in Aquarius at the time, so we can imagine that everything you're talking about there is, yeah, it's just going to sort of double or triple our information out there. I mean, it's already happening with so many things buzzing around. But yeah, the things that we're going to find out and dredge up from that Aquarian sort of space, which is a bit different is that your cat?
Yes, it's Bob.
She wants to get into it.
Oh, Bob
But I,
wants to be in the conversation.
hello, Bob.
Josephine. He's so
And I love
cute.
what you just said before, and it reminds us of, that we've got Saturn, and in order to get, like you're saying, you're not ready yet to go to this realm, we have to go through Chiron, don't we? And Chiron is the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
feature
yeah.
of the heroes. Like the heroes had to spend time with Chiron in order to go out and, sort of conquer the world and be the hero that they were, sort of born to be.
Mm,
So it's just the mythologies and the sequence of planets
hmm.
outwards. It's just incredible, isn't it? It's just so
Yes,
fascinating. The
this is
steps.
when this is when it's starting to make real sense from an evolutionary perspective. When you see the sequencing of the planet, it's absolutely making sense. We see it in our birth, from our birth as well, how incredibly solely lunar we are at that time, being an infant, you're just sun, moon, right? Earth, sun, moon, earth, and then you
Yeah.
discover your Mercury. And you discover your Venus, and then you discover your Mars at the age of 2, and then it just continues.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
just a very beautiful unfolding of consciousness that actually we as humans
Mm.
are
Out
observing
of.
or
Yeah,
witnessing. Yeah, we're
yeah,
witnessing life. We're here just witnessing, like we're kind of, my father always said, we're the eyes of the cosmos. We're the eyes and the ears of the cosmos. I mean, he probably heard it somewhere because I think, it's fairly familiar to recognize humans as being such. It doesn't take away our responsibility as humans, that we can't really do much because we're stuck here in this vast universe and we're just like tiny, tiny nothing, specks of something. Um, but it certainly humbles us, just like the Chiron and the Saturn teacher humbles us to understand that, yes, do what you can within your lifetime, right? But the hero, Chiron is still a demigod. He's half human, half god, and that also sort of reflects us as humans. There is one part of us that's eternal, it's connected to history, but this body has an expiration date, this identity, this
Mm.
identity. So I think the only way we can kind of like, uh, well, the older I get, the more Buddhist my mind goes, like I'm like, okay, this non-attachment, detachment thing is really fairly healthy in terms of this crazy, wild evolutionary journey that we're on. Because
Well, it's a
yeah,
great
it's kind
way of
of yeah,
coping, that philosophy of coping with, not being so attached to everything that's happening in the world as well, because it's a bit much. It's a bit
it's a
much
bit
to
much.
take. It's a bit
It's
much.
very much yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a and our human responsibility is also something a lot of us we go to bed and we keep wondering what could we do, what can we do, and I think this is also something that's coming in. The American Revolution started somewhere at the end of Pluto in Capricorn, and then it continued into Pluto in Aquarius, full force, which was this rebellious and energy that
Mm.
came through and surfaced that had to do with the oppression. Right now we've had, well, the powerful 1%, for instance, we are all feeling a bit this feeling of being really small when you see these huge companies that are driving the world. Today it's tech, it's the tech,
Yeah.
it's the Nasdaq, it's the tech thing, and it's like the values these people are sitting on. It's really becoming a threatening kind of it undermines
Mm.
government's powers. So right now we are in a situation that calls in a way for a kind of revolution, and it definitely calls for solidarity between us and group work and help each other, and it doesn't really mean that we show up and we march and if not for everyone, we have all our little ways of doing this, and we have to act according to our own hearts. So today it's really difficult to figure out what's the right thing to do.
Mm.
It's a
Mm.
deep initiation into our own intuition instead of listening to the pressures that come from the outside. And if we listen to our own heart, Leo is the polarity point of Aquarius, and we will always have this dance between the polarities, like,
Yeah.
okay, Leo,
Be a
listen to
strong
your
individual. Join the
individual
group.
heart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm.
like if we want these like I think today we are waking up to the fact we have to co-create these warmer societies if we want it. We can't just go around demanding it without doing anything to create it.
Mm.
And we do that in ways some people do that in trying to kind of like persuade others to think the way that they think. But from an Aquarius perspective, it's more about accepting that we are so different. We cannot do that, but the value of our individual actions can matter. It can change a lot, especially if we are tolerant enough to accept people as they are, and help because of like be
Yeah.
humanitarians
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of politicians or
Uh-huh.
political. So
Yeah.
I think this is the potential of Aquarius. Of
Mm.
course, I'm not saying it's going to be like that because you can see a lot of weird cultish things going
Yeah,
on in
still
the groups
a
as
way to
well.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But like if we just keep to the idealistic side of it and we keep to the potential of the water bearer, the one who shares knowledge fairly with everyone, who enlightens and uplifts and gives all these aha moments that you sometimes go through during a Uranus transit is like, aha,
Mhm. Mhm.
aha, I got it now. Then
Mhm.
you are being, then you are being enlightened. So Pluto is going into the sign of enlightenment, actually, or awakening, waking up.
Awakening. Yeah.
Yeah, waking
Yeah.
up. And then you will realize how to help or how to be of use for the group and how to create a good functional unit. It can start with you and your cats, to be quite honest. It
Yeah.
can start
Yeah.
with your family,
Yeah.
start with you and your friends, or start with you going to the shop, saying hi to the lady behind the counter and just giving her a better day. All these things matters. This is where we understand that, there is no group without everyone. Everyone's
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
So
Right. Yeah.
And
I
now
mean,
we,
the transition that, from Pluto from Capricorn to Aquarius, it's like, it's so evident, isn't it? We think about, yeah, think about our ideals for, a more humanitarian world and such, but we keep still feeding the old one, right?
yeah,
Like
that's
we're
it.
feeding the old one. So how do we expect it to change? Because the whole Aquarian sort of like theme is I know EA
Mm.
astrologers, Uranus is the ruler, so it's about cutting off, or the in the traditional sense Saturn was the ruler. It's about cutting off something to go to the new world, and we can see it happening, but we're not ready to cut off the old systems
No, I
which
know. It's
supported us. So until it's a long process, but again, as much as we keep feeding that big system, the
mm.
political system, as you call, from politics to humanitarianism or whatever, the transition is a big one. Yeah, I mean
It's a
that's
slow,
the job.
it's
The job.
in a way, we have to appreciate also that it is slower than we kind of idealistically would want it to be, because I don't know if you've seen any
Yeah,
revolution. It's always
process.
bloody
Yeah.
and chaotic and it's stressful and it's really devastating for the emotional body very often. And it takes time. I think humans, because we live in this world of ideas, we don't understand always the needs of the emotional body, and the emotional body needs safety. We can't just uproot people from their identities, even like our national identities, our identities as this, that, and the other, or something. It is so hard to live with this kind of openness to life, like I'm fine tomorrow, whatever I don't have anymore, I'll be happy again. That is hubris to think that that's like anything that would be healthy for us. We're mammals. We need safety and
Mm,
security, we
mm,
need some place where we can regulate our nervous system. And very few people can live without that. They must be some sort of superhumans. And I guess that's what we expect from our leaders or from ourselves sometimes,
yeah.
that we are just to be able to do stuff that we are not quite ready for yet. So I
Mm.
think I think that we
Well, it's
can,
that
if we
Uranus in
can.
Taurus, isn't it? Uranus in
Yeah.
Taurus, the comfort zone, and we know it's challenged, but we know we know what we still need, and we need to nurture and keep. Yeah,
This is where we come into the class that I'm giving on
yes, okay.
yeah, Sunday, the 17th. And that's the change. It's easier when you're younger. The moment you hit menopause or like 50 years old and your hormones change, you become extremely sensitive to stress. Actually, I think it's been scientifically proven that you can deal with most stress and drama at the age of 24.
Yeah,
So that's
right.
why all these revolutions, they come through people who are younger and their sexual hormones are very driven.
Virulent. Yeah.
Like, this is like this, these are the warriors, right? Like when you get older, you're like, I don't know, I don't think so, like, so change very often, of course, inspired by the philosophers and the thinkers and the wise people of our societies, which is like
Mm,
the
mm.
elders, they also have something to contribute with, of course. But it's very the changes that we see come through the lifestyles of the younger ones. And right now, the younger ones, that's true. What's trending on Instagram? Well, it's this meaningful economy thing, like I've sold everything. I have a tiny house now.
Tiny house, or
I live off
minimal
the
house.
grid.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I live off the grid. I'm making my food. I decided to get off the loop
Mm,
of capitalism, and I decided to use all my spendings buying this little farm. And these are the people that will move as we evolve, or as time moves on, we will see a lot of a transition probably into a more meaning economy, because right now they can't find the meaning in it. First of all, the whole
yes,
way the
yeah.
economy system is created, it's ruining the planet because of the carbon imprint. That doesn't make any sense. Why do we do that? And we work and work and work and work, but we barely have time to enjoy
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
And there's
yeah,
no time to
absolutely.
think and to
Mm.
ponder and to, there's like if
And
it's just it's
de-stress, like our societies are stressed. And,
extremely
the economies are
exhausted
stressed,
and
which
mm,
passes down to us the cost of things. So, and stress and leads to disease. I mean, it's the biggest killer that there is. And
yes.
so healthy societies, the way that we, yeah, have been accustomed to working and, expanding, our resources or extending, let's say. Yeah, anyway, that's all the things that are up for change, aren't they? I mean, we had that dose of people working from home through COVID and, doing in their own time more. Like there's more to come of that, with people not traveling to work as much and, lots of changes. They'll just be rapidly, coming through, let's say.
Like I think there's a lot of interesting things, and I think that the kids who are born with Pluto in Capricorn and Pluto in Aquarius will show us, and even some of the Pluto in Sagittarius people actually will show us what this new economy will be. What it will is, I think there will be some very powerful visionaries, for instance, in the Pluto in
Mm.
Sagittarius generation born from 96 until 2008. These people are really making an imprint on society. They're really
And they're
making.
still what, 20-year-olds or
Yeah, they're
30s?
like the Billie Eilish,
Yeah, okay.
Zendaya, Timothy Chalamet, that
Yeah,
younger
yeah,
generation of and
yeah,
and and even though we just see like mostly like the thing that come from Hollywood or through pop culture, underneath and behind the scenes, you have a lot of geeks working on with their stuff that we are not so visible, but these are also the creators of something that we might see the results of
yeah.
as Pluto goes through a sextile to this particular sign
Yes,
in the
right.
next 20 years, which is a very dynamic, inspiring,
Mm.
communicatively challenging experience. And it also might reveal for some of these Pluto and Sagittarius where they are too limited or too narrow or too stuck up, because Sagittarius is after all a
Yeah, it's going
very
to open their,
bombastic.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
going to
yeah,
open their minds a
yeah,
little bit and like,
yeah,
oh
yeah,
wow, like
yeah,
these new
yeah.
discoveries. So it's extremely vibrant. I mean, so I think it's
I
fascinating.
mean,
I
it's
mean,
going to be fascinating for all generations. I mean, we can quickly kind of, um, like again, like all Pluto generations, the way it sort of just ticks along slowly, or the drum beats
yeah,
going through your chart, since birth. The we know that the generations experience their first sextiles or their first squares or their first try, what the only what the only square that you'll have, the only sextile you'll
yeah,
ever have,
yeah,
the only, I should say,
yeah.
the only
Mm.
trine you'll ever have. And like for my generation, Pluto in Virgo, early Virgo, Pluto in Aquarius is the inconjunct or the quincunx, right?
The
So
quincunx.
I
Yeah.
was thinking about that just before and go, okay, so for my generation, we've had the trine, we had the Virgo Capricorn trine. We had the square, I think one of the earliest generations to have the square in
Yes.
Sagittarius at 36 years old. I think that's the youngest generation, and then the others are always older, aren't they?
Hmm. Yeah, well, some won't even have it. So
Yes, I
this
won't even have
particular, there are two things that is very interesting about the time that we live in right now. First of all, we are experiencing a lot of different Pluto generations alive at one time. It will be rare to have
Yeah, okay, there'll be
like now we
less.
have like
Yeah,
six Pluto
yeah.
generations. Yeah, because it's the Pluto is going away from, he's at his farthest place from
Point.
the sun.
Yeah,
So it's slowing
yeah,
down incredibly right now. It's like, you thought Pluto went slowly. Just wait and see. This is going
yeah,
to go
yeah,
very
yeah, yeah.
slowly.
Yeah.
So not
So for
all
those that
will
don't know, it goes,
experience.
yeah, right. I was just going to say for those that might not know, Pluto goes the quickest through Scorpio and the longest through Taurus. So it spends 40 years in Taurus and, 12 years in Scorpio or something like that. So,
Yes. So
yes.
not everybody will be will experience, like Pluto in Aquarius, people might not experience their first Pluto square Pluto, like, or like maybe they
Yeah.
will, but they will be very fairly old compared to
Yeah,
what
right, right,
you,
right.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it's going to be 20 years in Aquarius, what, 30 years in, how many years in Pisces? It just slows down,
Well,
and then
again, it
it's,
slows down. So if it's 20 years in Aquarius, it will be 25 or 26 in Pisces,
yeah,
getting
yeah, yeah.
more
And
and
then
more. And
30 in
30.
Aries.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so let's say you were born at the beginning of a Pluto in Aquarius, then you've had to 20 when it enters into Pisces, and then you're 45 when it moves into Aries, and then you're 70 something when it moves into your square. But you will still experience it. And the fun thing right now is that we might, with this biohacking thing that's going on, I mean, it's not the silliest thing on earth, but we're getting older. That's a fact. So as Pluto is slowing down, everybody's living longer as well, which is like
Mm,
we might see
mm.
people like being 100 is not a big deal after like when Pluto's in like Aquarius, we're like,
Well,
oh,
we
you're
had
100.
that,
That's nothing. 100 is the
right.
new 80. That's what we're going.
Yeah,
So we're
right.
living longer.
Mm.
And it's also the um this
But we'll be
experience that
robots soon. We'll have all the extras that
we're
can help prolong life.
And the other thing that's incredibly important from that we are experiencing right now is that um, and this is something that Jeff Jor, do you remember Jeff Jor?
Yes.
Yeah, Jeff Jor, he used to work with Rick Levine before he died,
Yes.
passed quite quickly, He was an excellent writer actually, and I loved was one particular um article that really stuck to my brain, and I'm like, I haven't been able to get it out. And Jeff Shaw wrote about we can't really predict anything right now because now we have the internet. We haven't been, I mean, like this is such a good point. And yeah, it's just the
Well, now we have
internet.
Chat
It's
GTP and
yeah, yeah,
AI.
yeah,
The internet was
but it
a
all
Pluto in Sag thing, wasn't it?
yeah, but it all started with the internet, and that's been like the world revolution. That's a revolutionary thing. Suddenly we are able to what talk to each other immediately, and
Mm,
we've connected in ways we haven't really connected before. We have been globalized. The globalization has been going on and like since the trading
yeah,
made us
yeah,
global, right? Trading and curiosity, I guess, and of course the need to expand and conquer. But it all made us very global, and we've been increasingly globalized right now to the
yeah.
point where it's getting a little scary. But it's like, oh, well, that's a little vulnerable in a way to give up, to feel that we have to this little power when everything is centralized. So, um, it's hard to imagine what happens in the future due to these things, because of this internet factor. I mean, nowhere in
It's so
history did we
quick.
ever have that.
Yeah,
Nowhere.
yeah,
We had
yeah, yeah,
letters, of
right.
course, they
Yeah,
sent letters and we had
yeah.
phones and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But the computer is like, okay, I'm talking to you. You're in Australia right now, right? So I'm in Norway and we are
Sounds
connected
like
with
you're around
other
the
people
corner.
online. Yeah, it's like it's
Mm,
everywhere, it's instant, and you can see how, and of course, chat GP, this
mm,
AI thing that is really like something that can really mess with people's minds, and the potential to make people go crazy is just as big or strong as the potential to create enlightenment. So we are at the threshold of the age of consciousness.
mm-hmm.
And I think Pluto in Aquarius is kind of like fanning the way for well, it is for the age of Aquarius, which is we're still in this, you know,
Yeah, transit.
twilight zone between
Yeah,
the ages. So this is the Armageddon feeling we sometimes get with this old system, and still no new vision has really been presented to us yet. It's like you see this with the Gaza conflict as well, or the Israeli Gaza thing right now. It's like it's like this
yeah.
feeling of
What's the future of this?
disorientation. Yeah,
Mm,
what the is
mm,
there we lack vision. It doesn't
mm.
have a let's do this, it doesn't feel like there's like it's just really, really
Yeah,
difficult.
Yeah.
old energy, and a humanitarian disaster, to be quite
Yes.
honest.
Yes. It's
And
showing us the worst of what we're not doing, or how we're treating people,
it's
and
very old.
going
It
for
feels so
yeah.
old. It's like this is
Mm,
so old school. I
mm,
think we should have,
mm,
but it's like, and still there's like this feeling of hopelessness around it. And I think this hopelessness is something that we often encounter in the depth of our own psyche, especially when we work with Pluto. It's this, but what to do? How can I change? How can I create these changes? Um, and the hopelessness of not being able to do something or not being able to kind of like move forward. And I
mm,
think it's being further enhanced, this feeling of hopelessness, because of the twilight zone between the astrological ages that we're in. We're in this vacuum where there's like little vision. It's the same with the environment. I mean, what's the vision? Where do we
well, no,
have any
it's
visions? We
it's
just
so
keep on
true.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with economy, we can imagine like there was this friend of mine who said, "Oh, it's hard. It's not hard to envision our own collective death. That people can envision any day, but they can't envision a life without capitalism." That's really
Mm,
hard. What? I'm not supposed
mm,
any money, consumer, blah blah blah. That's really like, and when he said that, it's something lift like I'm like, yeah, you're so right. That's so right. Why is that so right?
mm.
Why is it that we lack these visions? And I think with Pluto in Aquarius, and
Well,
especially,
that's the challenge, isn't it? Like going through and not knowing the future, but like the future is challenged through Pluto in Cap in Aquarius.
it's
Aquarius is the
birthed.
future. Yeah, yeah. We're
I think
not.
it's going to be birthed. I think within the next 20 years, through, of course, necessity, creates it, the need to do it. What is it? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah,
When you
yeah.
need to, like,
Slowly,
we tend to
slowly.
excel at crisis. Oh, now we need to. Okay, you don't go to the doctors before you
Yes.
have to. And Earth is really needing doctors.
Yeah.
It needs healing. It needs sustainability. It needs meaningful economy. It needs people having purpose in their lives. It means they feel powerful, that they matter. We need to understand the creation of what it means to kind of like create a healthy society, because it's to the
Mm,
benefit of
mm,
everyone. And that needs to replace this old paradigm of me, the
yeah.
instinctual drive of survival in a way. And that's really like, that's asking a lot. But from an Aquarius perspective, which key kind of qualities are detachment. If it doesn't work, let it go. If it's like it, I mean, the true Aquarian vibe is capable of letting go, of leaving something behind. It's not sentimental. It
Yeah.
doesn't cling on to an
Mm,
idea that is like sentimental. It,
yeah.
it doesn't, it wants
Yeah.
to define itself. It's like, but you are free. You're
Mm,
free even from your genetic heritage, from your family, from the identity you inherited from your family. That's why we see this gender fluidity coming through with the that's very Aquarian thing, and it's
isn't it?
very
Yeah, it's amazing.
yes, and
Even though
it's
it was here somewhat before, but it's just becomes the norm, and it's again we're so not used to it really yet. You
but
know.
it sort of reveals that everything is fluid. I mean, who are you anyway, Jules? Have you
Mhm.
thought of it? Like, who are you anyway? So this is a big question. Who am I? Like, oh, I'm this woman. Yeah, well, right now you are. Next moment you feel more like a man, or you're doing something masculine and you feel this masculine energy, but you might have a core identity, of course, that's situated around your name and your gender, the way you perceive your gender. I'm all for it. I think that's a better way of
Yeah.
living. It's more honest. It's more reflecting nature as it is, compared to this, because that's the nature of who we are, if we just inquire inwards. Now, I have a very strong core identity. I have to admit it. I know for sure, like, oh yeah, I'm definitely, a woman. This is
Mm,
how I feel. But
mm,
at my core, but I can have really masculine sides, you know. So it's
Yeah.
like this is like my
The
mind
anima
is
and the
super.
animus exists in
Yes.
all of us, yes.
And
Um, yeah.
so I think for some generations, this journey into this very liberal, free-minded space can be a little difficult for the Pluto and Leo generations, which are facing the 70s, 80s,
The
90s, the
opposition, yeah.
100s. Yes, the
Mm,
opposition. A lot of
mm.
them might feel it's time to do what Pluto in Leo never wants to do. Accept that they're older now, you know, then it might be even time to prepare for the transition in one way or another. Like it's a
Well,
huge
it's
resistance.
part of their letting go in a sense that will,
Yeah.
breed the next sort of, let's say, hands on. I mean, it's like, Biden is, Pluto in Leo and the generations that are, we're just thinking these guys are way too old to be,
Yeah,
in
yeah,
charge.
yeah.
And
Yes,
that's like a really in our faces, isn't it? Just
yes.
one example.
That's really,
Yeah.
a good point.
Yeah.
And Pluto in Virgo generation, you're experiencing the quincunx. That's going to be a little bit interesting because you kind of defined your value and worth through
Well,
working. Yeah, like
yeah,
work.
well, I
That's
mean,
why that's
yeah, the Pluto
now
in
you can't
Virgo,
work that much.
we've wanted to be involved with making better systems, of course, making things work better, making things more efficient or healthy, let's say, in so many ways. I of course do it through astrology, but yeah, the quincunx thing, I've been thinking about. Okay, Aquarius, it's like getting used to um I don't know, things I've never done or never incorporated. Do you know what I mean? Like the trine was, yeah,
Yes. Mm.
building business,
Mm.
things working off that way. But now it's like, well, that model's not going to fit me anymore either. So yeah, moving into new innovative ways of working, I suppose, as I kind of move into my 60s. So it's a bit
Well,
mm, and
it's
still
always a
slowing
it's always
down.
about being I think yeah, it's about slowing down. It's about being flexible and adaptable. The quincunx is always challenging in that way. You have to kind of like one legs once needs to be doing this and the other needs to be doing that. So it's a paradox in a way. So it's about being flexible and adapt to the changing tides.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a lot of the Pluto in Virgo people will realize that it's also time to hand over to stop working so much. You know, a lot
Yeah.
of them are
Yeah, a
workaholics
bit more of the
and yeah, be
time
more
to self.
flexible and just
Yeah,
chill a
yeah,
little bit
yeah.
down
Mm.
and find value in
In
just
that
being.
freedom. Yeah, in that
Yeah, in
freedom.
that freedom. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of
In that
working on it.
freedom.
Yeah, no. Yeah, there's quite a few things that come up. So, I mean,
Mm,
this is what you're going to be taking
yes.
everyone through with the next session at the CIA, which is going to be great. And Sol will be, let's say, directing it herself because it's going to be 4 in the morning here, so I'll have to catch the recording. But yeah, let's sort of introduce that a little bit because it's such a cool theme. I've always
It
loved the
is. I love
generational
it.
Pluto
Hmm.
stories. They tell us so much. I mean, Neptune generations and Uranus generations, but the Pluto generation, it's like, when we have our square again, in my Virgo Pluto too, we had our first square in Sagittarius.
Mm.
Now, that was like a getting of wisdom. I found astrology in that time, like in through
Mm.
my
Oh,
square,
you did.
right?
Yeah.
Or that was introduced to me, and then it was like, oh my God, I found the most powerful tool that I've ever known. And that was, it was also on my ascendant. So, I found the power of astrology through my Pluto square um, Virgo Sagittarius, right? So the
Well,
wisdom,
it begs, I
healing.
have to ask you, you have Pluto square your ascendant natally then?
Pluto is at 5 Virgo, and so sorry, it was earlier. Sorry, it was the
Yeah, yeah,
conferences. It was early. It was in my 12th house, squaring from the midheaven to the 12th, and it was later that Pluto was on my ascendant. But
yeah. Okay.
it was the opening. This first square was the opening into, having a reading. I was 36 going, oh, wow, and it led to things that then made me kind of be at conferences 6 years later or something by the time it was at my ascendant going, having done my diploma, going, I don't know anything in the world that is like this. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? I don't know any other tool. And it's been my mission
mm,
since. So
mm.
think about everyone that's online or whatever, your own Pluto square and what eventuated out of that story. I mean, again, you could think, what's your generation? Pluto Libra. Yeah. And then what
Yeah.
you guys did with your squares in Capricorn and changed the system of relationships and even, kind of put them into let's say into the system of government and stuff, changing laws and changing the way of gay marriage and all that kind of thing. I mean, I'm sure that there's much more to say about that. What did you sort of sense the most for yourself at
Oh
your
Lord,
Pluto
I'm
square?
very angular when it comes to Pluto, you see, because Pluto rules my midheaven in Scorpio and it squares exactly my ascendant in Capricorn.
Okay,
So
right.
when I had the Pluto square Pluto,
It was
of
on
course,
there.
Pluto was on my ascendant. And it was actually the start of, I've started astrology when also Pluto went through Sagittarius, but I was a little,
A bit
I was,
younger,
oh,
yeah.
even before. No, I started when it was in Pluto in Scorpio, and I had to inquire deep into my soul. I was like,
Okay,
I
yeah,
was
I can
very, I
see.
had Pluto
Yeah,
square the sun
yeah.
when I was a kid or a teenager, and that was really brutal for me. So
Right.
I searched astrology
Yep.
as something that could kind of like guide me through the darkness, and
Mm-hmm.
that's when I started um, really. Exploring it. But then I
Going
started
deeper.
working with
Yeah.
it when Pluto
Yep.
was in Sagittarius, and then when Pluto came to my ascendant there, because it's the ruler of my midheaven, I actually started what would be called my international, presence. So I started
Yeah.
going international. I had
You
opportunities.
put
So
yourself out there as
yes, I was very lucky. Like
the yeah.
Maurice invited me to this River of Stars, and I went to actually Israel to give a lecture, and
Yeah.
I've been all over the place to give lectures, and oh,
Yeah.
very, very,
Yeah.
very blessed.
Yeah.
And so that's now when we get to the trine, it's more like a consolidation. That's when it becomes more like a habit to use this kind of power.
Well,
You kind of
again,
like.
it's you're getting older too. Again, some generations earlier, but you're more kind of established. You have the Pluto square uncovers kind of your inner power to hold on even through the darkest times, let's say, to find the
Mm.
source, right? So once you've moved that, you've been burnt a few times, what have you, how to handle it better for sure,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah, yeah,
we,
absolutely.
we, we get
And
better at it in
one of
some
the most
ways.
interests, oh yeah, but I have to say definitely to that. There's like, okay, that's good. Okay. So it's not so dramatic anymore. But then you come to the square, which can be a little bit dramatic, and especially looking at the Pluto and Scorpio generation, who's like, this is the generation that is really
They're
like,
starting their squares now. Yeah.
yeah, they come in. I mean, they are really like at the crux of that, which doesn't make sense in a way because they work so hard. They have these beautiful college degrees or like high degrees, and they have to. They like, oh, I have to do that. Like they really like a lot of them are feeling pretty exhausted by the pressures and I mean, this is the Pluto Scorpio generation is a generation that is trying to figure out what is real power. What is real power. So. I think that Pluto square is going to help them
And
immensely
it's
to
got the
get
power
there.
of money and stuff, or not
Yeah,
necessarily.
it's like and the
Mm.
power of their psyche in a way because that is a very interesting generation and evolutionary astrologers tend to say that this is a generation that's been carries this memory of disaster and Armageddon,
Yeah,
like
yeah, right.
collapse. Like,
Aha.
oh, is it like so they're usually waiting for the other shoe to drop at one point. It's like, is this what it's going to, they're waiting for the
Mm.
destruction of some sort of thing. You can imagine trying to create stability, the polarity point in Taurus. And then Uranus is kicking in there for the time being, and you try to create stability. You need really stability, and there's no stability. There's no stability. It's everything is so uncertain all the time. And of course, like this is challenging them to find their a deeper power, a more stoic power. And Pluto in Aquarius will help them gain that perspective and
Mm,
rise the consciousness away from the emotional drama and and get some clarity and perspective. Oh, so
yeah,
that's what I'm
put it
doing
into
right
the world.
now. Yeah, and then
Mm.
to figure out themselves a little bit too, why this inner tension is always.
So they're quite a catalyst during this Pluto in Aquarius time,
Mm,
aren't they? So, I mean, this is what's so interesting about these generations and what power they find to evolve
mm.
the world for their mission, you know. So,
Well,
um,
we call Pluto in Scorpio the next power generation after
you're
Pluto
right.
in Leo. And you saw what the Pluto in Leo generation, I mean, the boomers that were
Right,
born
right,
right
right.
after World War II. I mean, yeah. You have like,
Mm,
for instance, Zuckerberg, he's born with Pluto in Scorpio, of course, and a lot of
okay.
these tech dudes
Yeah,
have that
yeah,
placement,
yeah, yeah.
and they're going to move really into power for good and bad, of course, like. So yeah, it will be interesting, and I
Mm.
can't wait to get my mind into it because I
I've
don't
just
know,
put a
maybe
link in
this.
the chat for
Ah,
anyone that wants to join that. Some of you may have already joined, and if you're not a
thinking,
CIA
yeah,
member, yeah, you'll need to sort of sign up for it. Otherwise, so you'll have to send me the link that we're going to use just as a
yep,
reminder.
yes, I
So
can
I
do
can
that.
give it out. But you can see how interesting this topic is. So Sol is going to dig deeper into that and, really focus on the generation and what Pluto in Leo is for. I mean, sorry, Pluto in Aquarius is about for the Leo generation, for the Virgo generation, the Libra generation, for the Scorpio generation, and then the Sag generation, and the Cap generation, of course, is what is really quite young still, isn't it? So, but still,
Oh,
there's
but
some. I mean, we've got kids, and many of us would have children that are in the Capricorn
and
generation, and
grandchildren
grandchildren,
and
and being
grandchildren, so it's very
interested in
important.
what their sort of evolutionary mission is. It's such a good topic. And of course, it's going to be 3 hours or thereabouts because, again, it's not it's too much in 1.5 hours or whatever it is, 75 minutes that we tend to do. Um, so yeah, for all of you out there, please join us. The link is with this video somewhere. And the wonderful soul. To take you more down that amazing Pluto black hole, let's call it.
Hopefully we'll come out alive on the other end. And I
Well,
just
remember
wanted
there
to
was the
appreciate.
the huge black hole, the biggest thing ever discovered was just kind of outed the other day as well.
Oh,
Like,
really?
well,
Wow.
that's
And
very
they, oh, it's.
Pluto in Aquarius, like we're just doubling, like we were talking about, the size of things is just, getting bigger as well.
Yeah, and then you come to the
Aquarius.
event horizon where time just stops and stuff.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
very
yeah.
interesting, the black
Yeah,
hole
yeah.
thing. I
Yeah.
just wanted to give a little shout out to
Sure.
Yvette who
Hello.
quoted
Oh,
this
okay,
very
yes.
beautiful quote about Tartang Tulku, a Tibetan master, has a very simple quote: "Thinking is time." So what happens beyond thinking is in the realm of being beyond thinking, beyond the personal. It is so brilliant.
Love.
Thank you very much for that. Thinking is time. I'll
Uh,
definitely take that to heart.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it is because it makes sense. Yeah, because I mean, this is the whole thing to not be in time, and it's not to think, be in meditative state and just be. It's so hard to
The
switch off our thinking.
yeah, it's distance is time, space is time, so it's like it's the space between that particle and that particle and the time that it takes to connect them. That
Yeah,
is the so
yeah.
the thinking processes is exactly that, that's something going on in the brain.
Mm-mm-mm.
So when we stop
Hmm.
that, we are timeless. And I
Yes.
think it will help us to gear down a little bit, to calm down completely and regulate our nervous system through kind of mastering time better because, as you said, we are very stressed out and burnt out and
Yeah.
hyper
Yeah.
vigilant these days. We're
Mm.
very defensive, and it's like I think humans, a lot of us are feeling a little vulnerable and scared. And if we can do
Mm.
that every day to just slow down time a little bit in our own lives and just go beyond the level of thinking and not have so many ideas about what's to come and stuff, then this journey through Pluto might not be so scary or the future, or we'll
Yeah.
come out of the other end of the black hole feeling rejuvenated and inspired. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I hope
I mean,
so.
the thing is just, finishing off, people are often very scared about Pluto transits or, having Pluto sort of what's going to happen. I mean, we've got to remember that it's happening all the time. This process, it does sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
come to us in more upfront in certain times. But it's always there. I mean, that's the whole thing. The life, death, birth, rebirth process is everything that we're part of. And so I just wanted to ask you something. I think we talked about this years ago, or I don't know, couple of years ago as we were chatting. Um, Pluto's the underworld god, but we've got Ceres as well. How do you deal with
Mm.
Ceres and Pluto? Because I see Ceres as a quicker moving, maternal sort of. Many associate Pluto with a very feminine, dark, deep, dark, feminine power. I think it doesn't have to be feminine or masculine, actually, but and a lot of planets are everything anyway. But Ceres is also a very much an underworld goddess that takes us through deep and dark initiations and, life, death, and rebirth as well. How do you kind of work with those
Mhm.
two?
Well, they're very, very linked. I mean, the mythology of Ceres or Demeter is the mythology is very it's the drama, it's the triangle of Proserpina, Ceres, and Pluto. So Pluto is linked to her mythology, and she is a matriarch. So this is a very feminine energy. I mean,
Yeah,
it's a very
yeah,
yin quality. It has a
yes.
yin quality to it. Let's just use this word. Um, and her she's also linked to Pluto in a way that, of course, a lot of astrologers might not like that, but Pluto is demoted. That's what we call it,
Oh,
because
they're
it's
equalized, aren't they? Yeah.
yeah, no, they're equalized. They're both dwarf planets. So I've been fighting for getting Ceres in as an equal planet as Pluto in the astrology. We learn to kind of use her. She's at that very
Mm-hmm.
she's in the sequence. So the whole asteroid is in the
Yeah,
sequence.
yeah, yeah.
If you look out and you see this
Mm.
Titus Bodhi law, that is the whole
Yeah,
sequential
she's
thing of
writing. Yeah,
our, yeah,
absolutely.
she's right there. There was supposed to be a planet there. If you look, there's like this gap. And what do we have? We have the asteroid belt, but we do have a dwarf planet there actually, and it's Ceres. So I don't see why we don't use it. It's very strange for me because she belongs very
Mm.
much to the hardcore inner circle. But she links to Pluto in ways that kind of like takes the whole Plutonic experience into our everyday lives, because she's like it's like a
That's what,
four and a
yeah, that's
half year
right. More
cycle.
upfront. Yeah.
It's more
Yeah.
upfront. It's like
Mm.
she's kind of like the story in itself is a reminder that we have to be in tune with these cycles, and she also shows us a little bit of the effect of not being in tune with it, because she goes through this wailing and weeping, and she loses her identity when the daughter is abducted brutally by life, by Pluto. Here comes Pluto sneaking up from behind, zoop, and innocence is gone. And she's grieving this loss of innocence, loss of
Mm.
innocence. It could be anything. So she describes every right we need to, the rights we need to have in our society when we start, for women, it's very particular. For instance, when we start to bleed, or when we stop to bleed, or when we get
Yeah.
children, or when we
Yeah.
realize we're growing older. It's like every phase has a need for a ritual, and this is the ritual that is this that they used to have in the cult of Demeter. They used to have these rites for these rites
Yeah.
of transitions, and
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
much more pronounced way than we have today. Now we just like plastic operations. You don't have to grow older. You can biohack or
Not
whatever.
sacred anymore or something.
She is
Mm.
the guardian of the sacred law, and I've always sort of wondered, what is that, by the way? And right now Pluto is going into Aquarius, which is also about circulation and sharing. She's a goddess of fertility and she feeds the people. So there's something with her that makes her very she has a very pivotal part for the way that the Greeks saw
And
humanity
that
and the cooperation
giving
between the
or
gods,
taking
right?
away, sort of like, I'll open the
Well,
door or you like, yeah.
when she was grieving and she lost her innocence, she stopped feeding. I don't get any more food. Kitchen is closed. I'm not
Yeah,
doing my
that's right.
duty. Um, yeah, I really think that Ceres is very, observe it, focus on it, try to kind of like understand your own Ceres. There's so much work to be done when it comes to kind of like deciphering or, cracking the
Yeah.
code when it comes to Ceres. I spent some years thinking about her because there's not a lot of good literature on it for the time being. I don't think so. And I haven't read everything, of course. I've read some that gave me something, but I keep coming back to the myth and to my way of reading is kind of reflections around it and
It's also how
observations
she
through.
shows up in charts, doesn't she? Like
Yeah, but
lines.
lots of
Oh, there's
charts. You just
this.
do
Yeah.
charts,
Yeah.
and what you can say is that Ceres is very often a place in our charts where we tend to hold on to the need for status quo and control. So she might feel like uh, an anti-Pluto in that sense. She's kind of like holding on. Nope, no
Mm.
change is happening here, And then she didn't want her own daughter to grow into age. The daughter was coming of age. I mean, she was sexually blossoming, and she still wanted her to be this little child, so in her garden, protected from everything. And so, this is
Mm.
how the Greeks eventually ended up. This is how we describe the balance between winter and summer, between death and life, and the constant regeneration of it all.
Yes.
So she's absolutely part of the Platonic myth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's a
Uh, that's
nerdy heaven for
another.
me.
Yeah, that's
Nerdy
right.
heaven.
Yeah. We better let you go, Sol. Just
Yes.
one last thought. When Maurice was here, we just had our retreat here. Maurice Fernandez was here, and we were talking about the Pluto in Aquarius, happening, of course. And one thing that sort of, we got to understanding, let's say, is that, over the last, he was talking about the ages of, Aquarius, coming into the age of Aquarius, so a bigger cycle. But again, we're going, Pluto in Aquarius now, and it's the big idea of reclaiming what heaven means to us, right? Like the big
Mm,
sky,
mm,
as Uranus was the sky god. Um, and what that heaven means. Now it's very scientific, isn't it? God owned it for a long time. And
mm,
now we're sort of coming into this more freedom time where we are reclaiming a lot of how we are connected in this time space. I would say without a God, it's like getting back heaven. That's how I see it. Well, so Pluto in Aquarius is a small part of the bigger part that's to come.
mm.
Anyway, something to think about. um, but thank you so much, Sol. We could listen to you forever because you got so many great insights. Irene's just saying space-time is so intrinsically linked that if we work on time, it will affect our space. And if we work on space, it will impact on time. Thank you for your
Mm.
insights, Sol. That's lovely. Um,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely, definitely something I could chit chat for hours and
Yes.
hours and
So
hours.
for
You know
those of
me,
you, yeah. So
Moon
for
in
those of
Gemini,
you
blah blah blah.
that want to join Sol for an in-depth look into the Pluto generations and for Pluto in Aquarius, please please sign in and sort of register. And for others, what's coming up in the CI after that? We've got Gary Caton on Mercury cycles and the elemental fire year, and he's always got a few extra sort of part about the cycle that it's really good to learn. We have our new Time Lords issue coming out at the end of March, and Sol, you've written a great piece on Chiron, so hook into that. And today I found out that our Ceres, we're doing this cooking segment in Time Lords, and Ceres was just published on astro.com. So talking about Ceres, so have a look at that as well. That's
Oh,
free on
lovely.
the website.
Oh,
Yeah, we've been influenced by the planets, but we put Ceres in there because we did, we did up to Mars, and it's like, well, we've got to put Ceres in, so we did. So thanks everyone, and thanks mostly to you, Sol. I love talking to you, and it's good to see you because we're so far away from each other.
same to you, Jules. All right. Have a
All the
beautiful
best,
Sunday wherever you
everyone.
are, and
Get in
bye-bye.
contact with us, and we will see you for the webinar, hopefully. All right. Have a
Hopefully,
great
yeah.
Sunday, Sol. Yeah. See you,
I'll be there.
Keenan. We'll talk soon, everyone. Thank you.